connected with Take Two Radio on Facebook or Twitter at Take Two Radio. For email updates on future shows, follow at Blog Talk Radio. For previous episodes, upcoming guests, and more, visit take2radio.com.
Hi, this is Dave-Rountree, co-author of the soon-to-be-released Demon Street USA, author of Paranormal Technology, an all-around science geek in the paranormal. And when I'm not doing anything, I sit around and chuckle to the antics of the Malliard Report.
The opinions expressed on the Malliard Report are those of the host and participants and are not intended to and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of any simulcasting radio network or sponsor. All listeners are advised to make their own decisions.
It's the Malliard Report. Yeah, the Malliard Report. The paranormal talk radio show with Jim Malliard as your host. See what life's beneath. Any paranormal activity. Go inside a world that others don't want.
Over because I didn't have my mic. I had my mic muted. Okay, welcome to the Night's Malliard Report. For the second time, go over to italkparanormal.com/giveaway. I'm giving away an IR light from Spectrum Light next week on my show for my birthday. I'm giving away stuff for my birthday. So go to italkparanormal.com/giveaway. David, the third most famous voice in this program history, right after mine and Scott, which you have the 6 degrees of separation with Scott Bright, who did my voiceover work through Dr. Kim. So how are you doing tonight, David?
It's been one of those nights, as evident in your intro flub up there. But it was kind of eerie hearing my own voice plugging your show. Oh, my Lord. Yeah, it's been an entertaining evening here on the home front. But everything's good, man. Life is just, starting to go nuts. I mean, just nuts.
Well, for you, that's like the boldest statement I've ever heard.
Oh, man, dude, I thought I lived a nutty life before. Life is becoming I need full-time help, which, by the way, I would like to publicly acknowledge the fine volunteer work that Mr. Jim Malliard has donated to help us, and I'm hoping down the road that I can pay him for it. But Jim built our entire Demon Street USA website, and he even owns the domain, so we're all in servitude to him now. Yay, Jim!
Well, if you want it, we'll get it figured out. Don't worry. It's not like I'm going to hold it hostage for anything.
No. Jim is one of the few people I trust with my life in the paranormal that, I'm not related to because I don't trust any of those people. Or my best friends. So, I just want to say Robbie and I certainly appreciate it. Neither of us have had the time to do it. When you graciously volunteered your services to help out, it was so appreciated. I mean, if, I was gay, I would kiss you. And I still may before it's over.
Well, one day at a time. There's like I was telling Robbie before I called you, that if there's anything that you want up there that I haven't got up there, we'll get it up there as we go forward.
You and Robbie have been plotting my demise. I just know it. Y'all are going to trip me up in an interview or something. I know.
Well, somebody has to trip you up. I mean, come on. I've known you for what, almost 4 years now.
God. I think it's longer, hasn't it? It seems like forever.
I don't know, but
I remember you when nobody knew you.
Yeah, back when I was doing my show. Back when I was doing my show with my crazy co-host who was smoking pot while we were down there.
Yeah, now you're getting famous, and you might even get rich, so that's cool.
I'd rather be rich than famous.
Yeah, tell me about it. Tell me about it.
Okay, enough of this.
We have to do it the opposite way. We have to get famous before we can get rich. Oh, God.
Okay, so now we mentioned throw out the actual website, because you thanked me for it, but you didn't give the web address.
Oh, it's actually demonstreetusa.com.
How convenient.
We're so proud. Yeah, we're so proud of
I was
jam up job.
I was shocked it was still available when I went looking for it. I figured some weird cult had it locked down.
Well, Robbie and I had a discussion. It was kind of funny. We had a discussion about doing this, and that's as far as we got. I mean, we didn't get it much further. You should see the interviews we're getting. We're getting like 4 or 5 a day coming in.
Well, I'm trying to post them as I find them, so.
Yeah,
well,
what's
recordings
funny is I was actually filming, and Robbie was holding the fort by himself, and Robbie did a great job. I mean, we had to kind of communicate a little bit to sort it out, to figure out which ones we had already locked in and stuff, but once we sort of developed a system where we're kind of passing the non-heard from shows back and forth, we're starting to keep up with it now. But, man, I came back from being on the road for 3 weeks, and it was like, oh, my God, where are we? I felt lost. But Robbie did a great job. I mean, he's booked us on probably almost 20 shows now. And I just heard from George Norrie. George Norrie's reading the book, Robbie.
Excellent. Well, and the credit needs to go where a lot of it is due, and that's to Warwick Associates, who are our publicists, who are doing just a bang-up job.
I mean, we do have a great team. We do. We have a great publisher, a great team at the publishing company. We have a great publicist company, the Warwick Associates. They're fantastic. And just as friendly to work with, wonderful people. So all the horror stories you hear about publishers, we haven't seen it.
I mean, you had a horror story before, right, David? With your first with your first books, you had a horror story publisher, so you've seen both sides of it.
Well, yeah, the first 2 books that I wrote, one was a fantasy novel that was published back in 2001, and of course, Paranormal Technology. I was with iUniverse, which is a print-on-demand company, and you know what? I have to say, they place your book. I mean, but everything you do costs money. Like, if you want them to edit it, it costs money, and it's expensive. And then if you want them to, like, what was the thing they were doing just recently that they were hitting me up with? Oh, trying to get the script turned into a movie. I could make a movie for what they charged of the whole book. So, yeah, it's a very expensive course. And then, you hear, I was in this argument with some people the other day, yesterday, I think, about, these hosts want everybody to send them a book. If I sent everybody a book that I did interviews with, I would have given away more books than I sold. I mean, and that comes out of the author's pocket. So,
yeah.
And I was arguing for the author.
Hey, wait.
And these authors.
I built myself a new studio a couple of days ago, and I have your book that I had to buy. I'm a good friend to David, and I promote his book every week on my show, and I had to buy it.
Yeah, see, so we appreciate that sale, Jim. We do. We appreciate each and every one. In fact, we're going to announce a little thing that we're going to do just for fun to get everybody involved and to kind of get everything rolling. And what we want to do is when you purchase a copy of Demon Street USA, we want you to take a selfie with it in the creepiest place you can figure, or a haunted location, or whatever. And what we'll do is we will feature them on the Facebook site, the Facebook book site. And we'll also put some up on the book page, on the book website.
Yeah,
Robbie?
We can do that.
Absolutely. In fact, I think, aren't you going somewhere really creepy real soon?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go to Fort Mifflin the end of the month. We're doing a fundraiser there for the fort to help repair the fire damage that was done there so that people can enjoy more of the location than they are even now. So it's a charity for the location. It's a historical location. And I've kind of gotten to be good friends with the people that run it and the people that are the main support figures in it. And I thought it'd be a good thing to do, to go there and help them raise money to fix the place up a little. So I'll be there, and I will do a selfie holding the book.
Are you going to wear a shirt?
Yeah. Well, should I wear a shirt, Brandy, for the selfie? She said I could. She said I could go without a shirt. So, and Brandy will do a selfie as well, and we'll put them up on the sites. And I want, we're curious to see where everyone takes our book.
I'll tell you what, and I will go ahead and I will match your Fort Mifflin with, I don't know, somewhere in Virginia City.
Ooh, drum roll.
So, of course, maybe it'll be a bunch of places in Virginia City. It's only 15 miles away.
Well, and what I'll probably do is actually we'll shoot some video when we're at the fort too, and we'll put that up. So,
okay.
Anyway, so let's get to it, Jim.
Yeah,
I know we've wasted enough of your time.
They haven't wasted any of my time. This is good. Because you know what's going on.
Yes. I'm hip.
Okay, so for my listeners who haven't listened to you be interviewed about 5 times on this book, lay it out there.
Oh, wow. Everyone always asks me first, so tonight I want to switch things up, and I want to let Robbie to start talking about the book.
I just kind of left it open.
This is Robbie's first book, actually, that he has contributed tons of original material to and wrote. And we worked really well together. And I want to hear him talk about his experience.
Although, it's not like I was coming up with fiction. It was pretty easy. It's just taking the images that are seared into my head.
Yeah.
And writing them out. It started out as a lark. It starts out as a very scary ghost story, but in the end, I think it becomes a spiritually transformative kind of tale. Most of the time, the books are about, this is a haunted place and this is what's going on. And then sometimes it's about, here we're going to do this investigation. Let's go get a priest. Ours goes beyond that. Ours goes to where, what do you do when you find something like we discovered, and it's up to you to deal with it. So really, it's several stories all wrapped up in one really fast-paced tale that will knock your socks off.
It's an onion. It really is. There's layers of plot to it, and everyone is getting. Robbie and I were discussing this just the other day, and we're starting to get feedback, and it's really good feedback. Thank you, everyone, very much for your kind thoughts and what you thought of the book. But what has happened is people are taking messages away from the book we never ever anticipated. We were trying to push through a couple of main themes in the book, and so far we haven't heard anything about the 3 main themes. We're hearing all of these really cool personal spiritual experiences that people are having, connecting with the book and identifying with Robbie and I. So it's like we really literally sucked them in and took them on the journey when they read it.
Well, that's the key. That once especially when you're telling a story, you want people to be sucked in by it.
But when we were writing it, we weren't thinking that. We were thinking of trying to get it all down, get the detail down, and not miss anything huge. And then, when we went to the publisher, we had to cut 10,000 words from the manuscript. So that was, an artwork as well. And, of course, a lot of really cool dialogue got dumped in the trash. But that's okay. The story still comes across, and the points are made.
Well, I tell you what it did is we had some really nice places in the midst of the book where you could stop and take a breath. And in essence, that's those 10,000 words. That's your ability to go, this can't be true, to where you're so strapped into that rocket ride that you don't have a chance to breathe.
Rob, you can't imagine David cutting 10,000 words, can you?
It was tough. It was tough for both of us because both of us lost a lot of dialogue it was good dialogue. And maybe on the website, we'll put up some of the galley that got cut or something, down the road, just so people can see some of the stuff that didn't make it, because it's some good stuff in there. But Robbie's right. We built in breaks for the reader, and New Page came in, and then their genius looked at it and said, "Oh no, you don't want anyone to take a break. You want to take a rocket ride, light the fuse, and have them hang on till the end, And they were wise, and they made a really good decision, and we all worked together on the cut, and we came out, I think, with a really good product in the end.
So absolutely.
So my one of my first questions here is, this event happened years ago. What made you guys decide now was the time, or even to put it into a book?
We couldn't have put it in a book back then, Jim. In 1985, if you told somebody you went to a house and you took on a demon, they locked you up in the insane asylum.
Well, I know, but you know what I'm saying, though. You obviously could have just flushed. I don't want to say flushed it, but
Robbie and I just sort of drifted in different directions. He ended up moving to Nevada. We talked about it, but we knew at that time it wasn't the right time to write it. I ended up burying a heck of a lot of it, turned my back on a lot of things, and tried to get away from it, which inevitably didn't work for 27 years. But we couldn't tell it until I think Robbie and I got to the point where we could tell it. And we each had our journey. We each had our own separate journey there. And both of us had, a spiritual journey. Mine was an erratic spiritual journey. Robbie's was more focused. But we both had to go through things. We had to get the wisdom in order to write the knowledge. I don't know if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense to me, but that's here or there.
The thing is we wrote it when we were able to. I don't think either of us would have been able to deal with the fallout that we have created in writing the story, because there's been fallout from it. And I think on an energetic level, we would not have been ready to deal with some of the things we've had to now deal with because of putting this information out there.
Yeah, see, that's the other thing, Jim. There's at least 4 more books coming in this series, because writing the one book created 4 more books of things that occurred in that process or during that process. So it's become like the story's picking up, 28 years later, 29 years later, whatever. The story fast forwards now, and all the stuff in between is going to be basically maybe a chapter. And then, because during that time, it was just, our lives were a wreck in different directions for different reasons, and we didn't discover that reason until after the book went to the publisher. So that is going to create a whole nother series of stories with other people involved, and they may or may not decide to use their real names, which will make it even more interesting, I think. But definitely the book created 4 more books at this point.
So let's go back, way back. I hate to push you way back, but how did this? I don't even know how to phrase this. I want to say how did it start, but I know that isn't even. How did you come in contact with these people? Because like you said, back then it wasn't as easy as going to Google or finding a business card.
It was word of mouth. It was word of mouth, and that's a funny story too, because before this even happened, Robbie and I had talked about the whole shamanic journey, the different aspects of it. But power really hadn't pointed Robbie out for me to try to bestow more than the conversations we had, which were kind of general conversations with a little detail. But you know how that goes when you're sitting there talking about something interesting. But it wasn't actually him performing the acts, doing the experience, living it. And this triggered the need for him to be taught, and that was power pointing him out to me that I needed to tell him as much as I could. And that's how that triggered. But how it worked out was Robbie had this friend, and that's the segue for Robbie to tell how it began, because it was really around him that it began.
Yeah, it was a story. Well, at least I thought it was at first. We had some time to kill, and I was working with Penny's husband, and she was just hanging out, and we were just sitting by the side of the Swanee River, and she just started telling me this weird story of what was happening to her every night, this big eye that was sucking her out of her body, and this bearded ghost that was taking her around and introducing her to all the other ghosts on the property. And she actually really gave me the full detail when she realized I wasn't treating her like she was wacko, and I was paying attention. I found it very fascinating. And then we left off, and I didn't see her again for 3 months. And when I saw her again, it was really bad. You could tell just looking at her that her life had turned. And even then, quite honestly, she told me what was going on in her house, and I went, oh boy, a haunted house. I want to go see what's going on. Hey, I got a buddy. And I called Dave up, and it really was a kind of an off-the-cuff, hey, our friend Penny, she's having this going on in her house, and come on, let's go check it out. This should be fun. Yeah.
Oh, God. Yeah, he's literally telling the truth. And I wasn't even, it was funny because I just sort of knew something was going on. Because in the middle of all this, when she first came to him, which was in May that year when the Swanee Festival took place, we were getting ready to do a show for the Florida 4-H Congress, Robbie and I together. And we were working on a show, and they do two big events. One's the talent show, and one's this dance that they do. And they have a band and all that stuff. Well, in the middle of that, and this was in July, in the middle of that, my father died in Virginia. And I had to leave, and I had to leave Robbie in charge of the production. So he got stuck with, and we had a good student crew and all that, but Robbie ended up getting stuck with running the show. Robbie had done a few of them already, so, I didn't have any worries that he could do it. He was quite capable of doing it. But he had to deal with that.
It's all absorbing. Everything that Penny had told us during May was gone because we were both so busy with life.
Yeah.
So then you reconnected, and then you called David, and then you went out to the house, I'm assuming, at some point here. So how did that I heard that you didn't take your cameras because, this was 1985, the other night, and I totally agree. Well, I bet that you wish now that you would have taken at least a few more pictures than you did for the book, but that's all hindsight.
Well, the thing is it's like Robbie said, we went over there on a lark. We weren't anticipating documenting anything,
Well, I said hindsight.
Yeah, well, we have a different mindset today than we had back then as well. See, we didn't have all these TV shows telling us how to do it back then. In fact, we didn't have any TV shows telling us how to do it back then. So, that's the thing. We went over there to go to a haunted house and experience it. And we didn't think about taking pictures or anything else. And pictures were not something like today. You have your phone. You just whip your phone out. You take a picture. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have computers.
I'll tell you the other thing, quite honestly, if you follow the history of ghost photography, the real big boom in getting things didn't come until we started getting digital photography, and that's because of the way digital processes light completely different than a single lens reflex.
Yeah,
so
and it also has an expanded vision. It has an expanded vision in the lighting spectrum, so it sees things we don't even see with our eyes. So that opened up this whole can of worms of photography and pushing it because, back in those days, if you went somewhere, you took 4 or 5 snapshots to document the house. You didn't try to take pictures of ghosts because you just never saw one. It wasn't, so many people see ghosts today. It's kind of frightening, but and I don't frighten easy. But,
I'm going to politely dance out of this one.
Yeah, you didn't see ghosts back then. It was extraordinarily rare for someone to actually physically see one, much less to catch one on a photograph. So, times were just, if you didn't live back in those times, I mean, it doesn't make any sense at all because you don't know any different. But we did not have the line of communications that we had today. You had basically, I think we did have cable TV then, but you only got like, I think, 40 channels on it, something like that.
And we were wanting our MTV.
Yeah, because they played music. They actually played music on MTV.
No, what's that all about?
Yeah, that like music videos, like all the time. It was great. That was the sound for most parties in Gainesville when we were living there, was that or TV 69, which was a UHF station that was like a video jukebox. Like you could call up and you could order songs to be played, and that's what the whole TV station did. So those two stations, MTV and TV 69, were available anywhere you went in the student ghetto because that was people's stereo. You know, right. That's what they listened to when they partied.
Okay, so let's get back on task here, I guess. So you went in, and what was your experience? Because you were going there to have an experience, I guess. You were trying to figure out what was going on, have a personal experience, because she was telling you about all the stuff that was happening to her. So how did that go?
Right. Well, that was actually the first time I had talked to Pam, like, about it face to face. Most of the information I had received prior to that was relayed to me through Robbie. So the first time I actually saw Pam, and I hadn't seen Pam in a long time.
Penny.
And Penny, wrong name. But Penny I had only kind of casually known her. You know, I had seen her, I knew who she was, that kind of thing. I'd never really talked to her that much. But she had changed dramatically in the way she looked from the last time I had seen her to when we met her at the property that night. And I didn't even recognize her. I didn't even know who she was. She looked like she had aged 40 years. And our first impression was when we crossed onto the property, we parked on the road. There was a ditch full of water around the whole property. When we crossed that water, it was like a little footbridge there. When we crossed that water, it was a difference in day and night. Physically, it was a difference in day and night. I say it was like someone putting a piano on your shoulder. Robbie says,
the gorilla on your back. The only way truly to describe it is you shifted realities immediately.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I mean, it was a different world. And it was a world where weird stuff happened. I mean, the thing that I had the hardest time keeping my composure and not freaking out publicly over, we watched a jalousie window close without the crank turning. And then I reached over and turned the crank, and the window opened. Now, physics isn't selective. There's a whole bunch of linkage in there that causes all those jalousie windows to open at the same time, and none of that was solid because the handle would have turned had a force just pushed the window closed, but the handle never turned. The crank didn't turn. And yet when I reached over to touch it, the crank turned and turned the windows. So there was a reality adjustment that occurred on that property while we were there. And I was pretty cool about it. I think I went, oh, wow, the handle's not turning. So, yeah, it was different. That was the thing that I think struck me on the first visit was seeing that.
You didn't go, dude, run? You could have signed hundreds of thousands of autographs. Oh, never mind.
We never ran, although it was probably because we were frozen solid with fear. But it never occurred to us to abandon it at any time. I mean, did we get scared? Yeah, we got frightened witless on numerous occasions, but it never dawned on us to flee and leave Penelope without help. So, I mean, yeah, it was scary. Yeah, we saw things that didn't make sense or couldn't be explained, but we never had I won't say we never had the fear impulse, because we did on numerous occasions. I just hid it a little better than Robbie did sometimes, but it never dawned on us to abandon it.
So you mentioned this was your first visit to the house, so I'm safe to assume there was more than one.
Yeah, there was 3 houses on the property. It was a strange setup because Penelope's house was kind of like on the side road, and then our favorite person to mess with, Clevis, his house was on the front of the property, and then behind Clevis's house was this it was a shop on the bottom floor, and then the top floor was like an apartment. And
not the one you'd want to rent.
No. Was there only 1 bedroom in that apartment? I think there was.
Yeah, only 1 bedroom. Oh, thank you. I needed to pull that image back up into my head.
Yeah.
Robbie's very
better at explaining that house.
So I hadn't realized there was multiple houses involved until about 25 seconds ago. So did you investigate all of them or walk through all of them?
Well, yeah. We did actually get inside all 3 houses in a strange manner. But the house that was the center of it all was this house that had a kind of garages and shops on the bottom and the apartment on the top. That apartment was in another universe. I mean, when you walk through the screen door to the stairway to go up to it, it was like you were on acid as soon as you entered into, the stairway. It was really where a lot of things were centered, but we didn't go at this to try to remove something from that property per se like that. We didn't have a chance to. It started coming after us. It started coming to didn't come to my house, but it came to Robbie's house on numerous occasions. So it wasn't tied to the property anyway.
So let me catch myself up. So when you crossed into the property over the footbridge, it changed reality. I'm just going to say reality changed a little bit. And then when you got up to that
perception.
To the apartment, it changed again.
Oh, yeah.
It got more intense.
Okay.
Yeah, like Emerald says, bang, he kicked it up a notch, several notches actually. So let Robbie explain that house.
Well, you went from feeling really creepy to sitting in a room where you could see the walls breathing. I mean, they'd move in, they'd move out, and you could tell you were no longer where you should be. Just everything about it was, and the first time, it was very interesting because everything seemed to hold its breath. It was though when we first came onto the property, everything went, "Ooh, look!" And then all of a sudden, everything went, "Let's see what's going on here." And by the time we had left the property, the first time we went there, it made it very apparent that we were not welcome and probably shouldn't come back.
Yeah, that was my feeling.
But knowing you two the way I do, you went back.
But of course.
Well, it was very interesting. The landlord Clevis, who is very much a deep part of this, he was away for the whole weekend, and all of a sudden he canceled all of his plans, his vacation, and showed up that night and said, "Hey, I want you guys to come over and talk to me." So, we obviously, by coming out and inspecting the property, we definitely batted the hornet's nest a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. and the thing is the second time was when his girlfriend got possessed, right?
Yes.
Yeah. The first time, he walks over to Robbie, and this guy must have known exactly where to stand in his yard to get the theatrical lighting required for that Barnabas look and dark shadows, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he stares Robbie in the eye, and he says, "Hold my hands like this." So they're facing each other, holding hands, facing each other like you're going to play patty cake. And he looks Robbie in the eye, and he says, I can conjure demons. Can you?
And my answer.
Robbie had that strange look on his face, but he kept his cool.
Yeah, my answer was, I don't want to conjure demons. And, of course, his response was, well, that's not what I asked you. I asked you, can you conjure demons? I can. So it was, it was quite the exciting trip the second time back. And the second time back was, like I said, with the person who was really a center of a lot of this. And that was the more spooky time, because that was the one where we walked up into that apartment again after dark, and it was just glowing. Everything was glowing green, and still the walls were pulsing in and out. It was, it's one of those things. Bless those guys' hearts. And the dude, let's run, because when your mind is in shock because of what you're seeing, the whole concept of running, I think, becomes foreign. You don't think about it. You're either frozen there, quivering in fear, or just so mind blown that your feet are no longer communicating with your rational self.
Yeah. Of course, I'm not running anywhere. I'd be outside having a heart attack if I ran too far. But that's another.
Well, the thing is you wouldn't have anything to worry about because you'd have had the heart attack up on the. One of the things that was kind of creepy is there was this thing with ropes in the bed, and no matter what you did with these ropes, they would always end up. What was it? Stuffed under the bed or something?
No, they would always end up one in each corner of the bed.
Yeah, they were tied to the bed posts, like you bound someone on the bed spread eagle. And you could take those. In fact, Robbie had taken them and tied them on a doorknob.
No, actually, you had and gotten real fancy with your knots.
Mm-hmm. And I put on these serious Boy Scout knots onto these ropes. And when we came back up there, they were back on the bed, tied to the post, and that was a little unnerving. But the real highlight of the evening is when I was looking at the wall. And do you know how old latex paint gets a little sticky?
Yeah.
Like when it's exposed to moisture. And in Florida, of course, you have very high humidity. So this paint was old, and it had gotten gummy. And I'm looking at the wall, and it's a white wall, and there's human hair, like body hair, embedded into the paint. And there's like a trail of it that goes up the wall to the ceiling, like someone was grabbed, shoved hard into the wall, and pushed up. And some of their body hair was left behind, leaving this trail embedded into it was the creepiest looking thing. I mentioned something about it, and Clevis goes, oh, no, that's impossible. I know every inch of this house, and there's no hair embedded in the wall over there. And then he comes over, and, of course, we have lanterns, because the spirits like fire are better than electric torches. And he's looking, and he's mesmerized because he's never seen it. And about that time, there's this blood-curdling, inhuman scream coming from down below, and Penelope is screaming, they've got her, they've got her. So we all go running down out of the house, and of course, Robbie was last.
I was going to say y'all went running down out of the house, leaving me up there alone. I do say Dave was the one that kept coming up with all these cool little tests and stuff to throw at the spirits. I was just kind of walking around going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But oh God. And they left with all of the lanterns, and that whole upstairs was still glowing bright. I could see everything in it. It was almost like daylight, except it was a sickly green daylight.
I'm trying to picture this all in my head. I got this running movie in my head. So
if this is ever made into a movie, it's going to be hysterical and horrifying.
Yeah, it sounds like my kind of movie. I mean, based off what I'm seeing in my head, I'm pretty sure.
The story is just, it's incredible because if we didn't laugh or have our humor through it, we wouldn't be here today. There's no doubt in my mind about that.
Okay, so you went running down. I guess we got to get back to this because I'm interested. You're running down the stairs, and what happened when you went down the stairs?
Well, we busted out and kept going towards the house to where the screaming was coming from. And Robbie was somewhere behind us. Robbie?
Yeah, I tried to run after them, but when I hit the bottom of the stairs, it was, it's fun. And like you were talking earlier, hindsight is a wonderful thing. I hit this wall it was a wall. And it took everything I had to push through it. And when I finally got through it, it was almost, I popped like a cork. You could hear it in your head, as I popped out of the house. And then I ran across the outside courtyard and hit the second wall at the next house, which was actually Clevis's bungalow, and had to again, still not sure how, but force my way through that into the living room, which when I finally got into the living room of his house, that one will make an interesting scene in a movie with Dave and Clevis arguing about metaphysics and Pam just there I go. And Penelope just sitting there just really freaking out. And then Clevis's girlfriend. The first time I've ever seen a possession live. Not something that I care to see anytime in the near future. It was very, very terrifying. And
bless
her heart,
grin. She grinned a grin that was physically impossible for her face to support. I don't know if you are catching what I'm saying, but she had this wide, evil, sinister caricature grin that just ate up her whole face.
Ear to ear, all teeth.
Yeah. It was freaky. It was very freaky.
And why didn't we go running, screaming at that point?
That's what I was just thinking. I would have thought, it's been a good night.
Well,
I left my oven on.
I'll tell you why I didn't leave, because I happened to gander over at Clevis's bookshelf. And his bookshelf started at where you came into the house, and it wrapped all the way around. I guess it was his den. And it did have an open space for the window to fit through, but there were shelves above, below it, to each side of it, and shelves all the way around, and they were crammed with books. But they weren't ordinary books. They were like leather-bound parchment books, scrolls, some clay tablets, papyrus, ancient books, like the stuff you read about is theoretical, believed to have existed. He's got a copy of it sitting on the shelf. I mean, one of the books that I saw was a very famous book that was mentioned in a lot of medieval arcane writing, but no one had ever seen a copy of it that I knew of, and no one knew that a copy exists, and it's sitting on his bookshelf. And Robbie's looking at me like a tree fell on me because I'm spewing all these Latin names and stuff, and he's like, yeah. He's like, what? And I'm freaking. But what was really interesting is a book that is considered by many to be a complete work of fiction by H.P. Lovecraft is sitting on the same shelf, real dog-eared. It isn't like a printed book. It's handwritten. The parchment's over 100 years old, probably older. And it's a leather-bound volume. And it's you can tell the whole thing is a handmade old book. And it was called the Necronomicon. And, Robbie knew what the Necronomicon was. He looked at it. I looked at it. We looked at each other. And we're thinking in our head, this is a work of fiction. It doesn't exist. And yet, here's this old book that's way older than Lovecraft's stories sitting there. And it's all hand-inked parchment pages and written. And that blew my mind. So I wasn't running anywhere because I was looking at this treasure trove of books that just their antique value was hundreds of thousands of dollars, and their arcane value was priceless.
See what now you just I had this picture of the guy in the straw hat with overalls a minute ago, and now you're telling me about these books.
Well, but actually he wore this big brimmed ball cap. You know, remember the old ball caps rednecks wore that had a long, long brim that looked like a duckbill almost?
Duck? Yeah, I know. I'm familiar with the duckbill, yeah.
That's what he wore. He had a big old mouthful of chaw, you know, this red man stuffed in his mouth the size of a golf ball. And he wasn't wearing bib overalls, but he was wearing work jeans and like a work shirt.
Okay.
He was a typical looking redneck.
Okay, so I wasn't that far off.
No, you weren't. And that's what I'm saying. There was so many things that were mind-blowing about the contradictions you were seeing. I mean, you're seeing this vast wealth of arcane knowledge sitting in this redneck's den. And there's like a gun rack on one side with some guns in it, like an old scruffy-looking stuffed head of something hanging on the wall, and then all these books. And his demonically possessed girlfriend who's sitting in the chair by the door with the Cheshire cat grin, and he's saying casually, "Oh, it's okay. They do this to her all the time."
So, obviously,
you can't make this stuff up.
No, and you can't. It's hard to ask questions about because he's the one conjuring it. It's his his girlfriend. There's many multiple implications there because obviously he has control then.
Going on. Yeah, obviously it's been going on for some time because there's a history that he's comfortable talking about with it.
Yeah, with strangers in his house. Well, I mean, he's got the guns and the books. I guess he figures he could clean up any mess he wanted to.
But the best part of that visit happened a little bit later when we went to the back bedroom where the old woman in the closet lived. And she was a spirit that kind of somehow or another got on the top shelf of the closet and just hung out up there. And he was complaining about a door that would open by itself and all this stuff. So I was talking to him still. Robbie was looking down the hallway. Robbie, you want to pick it up?
Well, there was just something that was telling me that I needed to go back into that bedroom and check on the little old lady in the closet. And when I tried to go back into this little hallway to get into his bedroom, because he said, go check it out, I couldn't. I couldn't walk into that area. I tried to stand in there, but it was like standing in the midst of a huge storm. Just everything, the pressure was incredible. And when I finally was able to get Dave and Clevis back there, when we went into the room, the closet door, which never shuts, never, no matter what you pile in front of it, always stays open, was shut tight. So even for Clevis, this was a night of some firsts for him, too. I think this might have been the point where things started to spiral out of his control, definitely.
If he had any to start with.
This is true.
I don't know that he had a whole lot to start with, but a funny metaphysical event occurred in which something happened called matter displacement. And it's a quantum term, in which case the molecules of a solid object align perfectly with the molecules of another solid object, and their spaces fill the particle spaces, and their particles fill the space spaces, and you literally go through matter. Because that's the only explanation I have for Robbie ending up behind Clevis and I when he went over to open that door.
Yeah, it was very interesting. 1 minute I was in front of him, and the next minute I was behind him. Pretty instantaneously.
I have no idea how he did it. And I don't think Clevis did either, because he looked rather stupid in the face when the realization was that Robbie was now behind us. And there was something in the door that wasn't really the old woman anymore, in the closet.
So this is all still part of the second visit. So how?
Yes. And the second visit, what were we there? Maybe an hour and a half.
Oh no, it ended up. You can't even do that. I mean, there's absolutely no way. That's a nice try, but no, because we got there when it was still light, and we left when it was really late.
I think it was midnight when we left there.
Yeah, time really got really sketchy there.
Yeah, time had its own meaning. Time did not match normal perception of time.
So I guess
that was another thing.
I guess I want to put a bow on the second visit here, as we're running fastly out of time with the hour.
Oh, that's a shame.
Well, it's okay. We'll address this here in a second. What made you decide to leave? I mean, at this point, I know you two, and I know how I'd be. This weird activity, paranormal activity, whatever you want to phrase it as, going on, you get sucked, like you said, you lose time. So how did you snap back and say, well, it's time to go?
I think it was when Clevis said goodnight. That's when we left. There reached a point where it was just ludicrous. I mean, his girlfriend is sitting there doing the funky chicken, sitting in a chair, and making no sense, drooling out of her mouth. At this point, Penelope had fled. She had left the house and was outside, sitting on the back of Clevis's pickup truck, smoking a cigarette one after another.
Well, actually, she took off. She left, and it was just the three of us out there.
That's right. She ended up getting in her car and leaving.
Uh-huh.
And then the three of us were out there while the garden was doing a light show. So it was, to say it was a non-ordinary evening would probably be a little bit of an understatement.
Okay. Like I said,
I think, what really did it, to be honest, is it was so noisy. Yeah, it was in the middle of the night, and there was nobody around, but it was so noisy, and there was constant things going on, this constant underline of laughter that was going as Dave and Clevis were having their deep discussion, and then all of a sudden, this is one of the reasons why I know that Penelope was gone. I locked her house up, and then there was this huge noise event in her house that seemed to quell every little bit of what was going on. Even the crickets stopped. It just went dead silent. And at that point, Clevis said, I think that's it. Good night. And quite honestly, I think we were full at that point. You can only take so much before you're just battering on a numbskull. And at that point, I think we were both numbskulls.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, we immediately, once we left the property and everything returned to normal, we got into my van and we were laughing hysterically and white as a sheet, careening back down the highway towards Robbie's house. So, I mean, that whole thing was our introduction to the case.
Okay. Well, at this point, like I said, I've got this hour. I've got other affiliates involved. So I'm going to ask you to do your promo bit, and then I've already cleared it with you guys. I knew we'd be clearly over an hour. I'm going to switch over to broadcasting only on my stream, which is at trm247.com. Run over there, click up, get set up. We'll close this show out, and then I'm going to take a couple minutes because I need to get another glass of water, and then we'll fire back up.
Great.
Sounds
good.
So David, hit me with the big. Well, Robbie, you do the Demon Street promotion where people can buy the book and all that stuff. And David, do you have anything going on people need to know about?
Yeah, I can say a couple things.
Yep, absolutely. Let me. You can get us at Amazon. You can get us at Barnes and Noble. New Page Books has a lot of links to things like indiebooks.com. Also, most importantly, from August 26th till I believe it's a week after the Labor Day weekend, we will be on the new release table at every Barnes & Noble in the United States of America. So for those that want to go to a true bookstore, we're going to be there too. That's great.
Absolutely. And I will be the 29th of August this month. I will be at Fort Mifflin. It's a celebration of the fort. We'll also have an investigation later in the evening. It's an all-nighter. So we're going to have a lot of fun there. And come out. I'll probably have some copies of the book with me. I'll, of course, have some copies of paranormal technology, and be happy to sell them and sign them for you while I'm there. And be watching September 8th on my Facebook page, because I'm going to make a very important, earth-shattering announcement. How's that?
Sounds good. And Demon Street USA, if you want to go watch some other interviews or all the links to the book and all that fun stuff. And what is it, spiritinvestigations.org for the lab?
Yeah, we have spininvestigations.org.
I should know that. It's in my bookmark, so I don't have to even worry about it.
Yeah, and then the wonderful book site is demonstreetusa.com, and you can find Robbie and I on Facebook. We're on there quite often, stirring up trouble.
Well, like I said, I'm gonna have you guys hang out for a few minutes, and we'll flip over to TMR247.com, or go to italkparanormal.com. You can get it through there. So, and go over to italkparanormal.com/giveaway last week to enter to win your IR light from SpectrumLight.com. With that being said, I want to thank everybody who listened to the first part of the show.
Well, before we flip that on-air sign to the off position, a quick reminder. For all things about the report, previews, and reviews, go to italkparanormal.com. That's italkparanormal.com. Good night.
If you're looking for a radio show where all things paranormal go, well, tune in and be in the know with Jim Malliard as your host. Come and see what lies beneath paranormal activity. The Malliard Report. Yeah, the Malliard Report. Tune in and listen every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, right online. It's the Malliard Report. Yeah, the Malliard Report.
Get connected with Take Two Radio on Facebook or Twitter at Take Two Radio. For email updates on future shows, follow at Blog Talk Radio. For previous episodes, upcoming guests, and more, visit take2radio.com.